This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
Goldilocks. The porridge was too hot. In the heart of the ancient shadow wood, where sunlight trembled and shied away, a little girl named Goldilocks found herself lost. She was a curious child, often found skulking behind bushes and climbing trees, seeking mysteries that hid from the mundane. A moss-covered dwelling, half hidden among gnarled trees, piqued her interest. Unbeknownst to Goldilocks, it was the home of the three eldritch beasts, ancient creatures birthed from the cataclysmic collapse of darkness and fear. The first was the Terror of the Dusk, a wispy figure whose mere presence caused shadows to shudder and winds to whimper. The second, Nightmare of the Midnight, a behemoth of darkness, devoured dreams and replaced them with horrifying visions. The third, Phantom of the Dawn, an elusive beast that painted paranoia in the hearts of those who woke. Undeterred by the ominous air that clung to the place, Goldilocks pushed open the creaky door. The interior was shrouded in a darkness that swallowed her whole. She felt along the cold stone walls, her footsteps echoing ominously. The dwelling was divided into three areas, a unique shadowy aura dominating each. In the first section, Goldilocks found 3 plates of shadowy substance. She tentatively tasted the substance from the largest plate. An ice-cold dread instantly gripped her, chilling her soul. She quickly moved to the second, only to be assaulted by images of unspeakable horrors. The smallest plate, however, filled her mind with a manageable fear, like watching a lightning storm from the safety of her home. Spurred by a perverse curiosity, she ventured into the next section. 3 shadowy forms rested here. The largest form radiated an oppressive despair, while the medium form hissed with barely contained violence. But the smallest form buzzed with a low, melancholic fear that strangely comforted her. Exhausted, she lay down, allowing the pulsating fear to lull her into a deep sleep. When she woke, Goldilocks felt different, wrong. Shadows clung to her like a second skin, whispering dread-filled secrets. The dwelling was empty, the eldritch beasts out hunting in the ethereal realm of fear. In their absence, Goldilocks had triggered an ancient curse, transforming her into a vessel of terror at nightfall. Terrified, she fled into the heart of Shadowwood. As dusk fell, a ghastly transformation overcame her. She became a creature of nightmares, an embodiment of fear, her once innocent eyes now wells of unending darkness. She was, however, still conscious. A prisoner within her own body, forced to watch as she spread terror amongst the woodland creatures. Every dawn, she would return to her human form, guilt-ridden and desperate. She sought the eldritch beasts, believing they held the key to reversing her curse. She found them deep within Shadowwood, their monstrous forms shrouded in a swirling miasma of terror. "I am cursed," she pleaded, her voice trembling with fear and regret. "I need your help." The eldritch beasts observed the child-turned monster, their inscrutable gaze penetrating the veil of her desperation. "Little one," said the Terror of the Dusk, its voice like a ghostly wind, "fear is a part of you now, just as it's a part of us. Only understanding it can break your curse. Face your fears," hissed the Nightmare of the Midnight, its form rippling with darkness. "Embrace them, make them your own. Only then," said the Phantom of the Dawn, its voice the softest whisper, "will you control the darkness, instead of it controlling you." For nights, Goldilocks grappled with her fear. She traversed the haunted corners of her mind, faced her demons, her guilt, and her regrets. She screamed, cried, and fought, but with each confrontation, she felt her fear lose its icy grip. One fateful night, as she once again transformed, she was no longer a helpless spectator. She felt an eerie calm, her fear a familiar presence, not a controlling force. She was a monster, yet she was in control. As the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon, Goldilocks felt her monstrous form dissipate. But this time, the transformation was permanent. She had faced her fear, embraced it, and now, it was just a part of her, not her master. She thanked the eldritch beasts, their dark wisdom her savior. With newfound resilience, she left Shadowwood, forever changed. The darkness within her was no longer a curse, but a part of her identity. She realized then, fear was not something to be shunned. It was just a shared condition of all sentient beings, a testament to the beautiful, terrifying journey of life. It was truly the fear we share. Deception's design. Doug Harris was an architectural marvel, his blueprints hailed as revolutionary and his buildings, paragons of modern design. The relentless pressure, however, of outdoing his past designs had started to get the best of him. It was during a business trip to Morocco that he found an ancient artifact. The strange, silvery orb enthralled him with its intricate carvings and seemed to hum with an energy that vibrated through his fingers, resonating within his architect's soul. On a whim, he decided to bring it home. That night, Doug's dreams were vivid and strange. He found himself wandering an impossible city, its structures defying the laws of physics. It was a metropolis filled with buildings twisted into fantastical shapes, each one more stunning than the last. As he wandered, a voice echoed through the city, booming and compelling. "Are you lost, Doug?" the voice asked, the unseen speaker's words bouncing off the city's walls. It introduced itself as Mephisto, a guide in this dream city. Mephisto promised to share the secrets of these magnificent designs, offering blueprints for Doug to use in his waking life. Doug was skeptical, but the voice's promise was too enticing. He agreed, and true to his word, Mephisto provided. The architect awoke each morning with fresh blueprints embedded in his memory, their layouts impossibly complex but entirely buildable. He started using these designs, and his reputation skyrocketed. Each structure was a resounding success. They were beautiful, inspiring, and pushed the boundaries of what architecture could achieve. But then, people began to talk. Each building, a marvel of design, seemed to house a dark secret. Elevators would descend to floors that did not exist. People would vanish in rooms, only to reappear days later with no memory of where they'd been. Shadows danced where there was no light, and unexplainable, chilling screams echoed in the dead of night. Doug couldn't ignore the mysterious incidents. Each accident was tied to a building born from Mephisto's blueprints. He was scared, but he had to know the truth. One night, Doug confronted Mephisto in his dreams. The once benevolent guide revealed his true nature, his voice echoing with a terrible laughter that sent chills down Doug's spine. "Yes, Doug, I am a demon. But think of the beauty we've created. Isn't it worth a few human mishaps?" Doug was horrified. Each blueprint was not a marvel of architectural design but a playground for Mephisto's chaos. The trickster had used him, and now, people were suffering. In a desperate attempt to right his wrongs, Doug decided to create a final blueprint, a building designed to trap Mephisto. It was a complex plan, demanding every ounce of his architectural knowledge and intuition. As he fell asleep that night, clutching the artifact, he presented the design to Mephisto with feigned enthusiasm. Eager to see a new structure rise, Mephisto fell for Doug's deception. The building, aptly named Deception's design, was magnificent and, more importantly, a prison. Mephisto's laughter echoed as the last brick was laid, the demonic energy pulsing through the structure. But as the echoes faded, Mephisto fell silent, trapped in the very maze of rooms, corridors, and impossible spaces he had helped design. Doug breathed a sigh of relief, finally free from the trickster's influence. However, he couldn't forget the horrors he had unintentionally unleashed. He quit his job, devoting his life to studying ancient artifacts, warning others of the dangers they could pose. The tale of Deception's design circulated as an urban legend, a chilling story of architectural brilliance and demonic deceit. But for Doug, it was a haunting reminder of the time when his ambition had been manipulated by a force beyond understanding, leading to a series of horrors that he could never erase. Beneath the same moon. In the quiet coastal town of Locks Harbor, the moon shimmered upon the midnight waves. Each full moon, a grisly murder chilled the hearts of the townsfolk. The macabre mystery was always the same: a victim found near the coast, savagely torn apart as if by some monstrous beast. Elias, the local fisherman Henry's younger brother, was always absent these nights, an unsettling coincidence that troubled Henry. One fateful evening, Henry made a chilling discovery. In the dim light of their shared cottage, he found Elias's clothes, tattered and blood-stained. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces of his brother's monthly disappearances and the grotesque murders coalesced into a horrifying image. Elias was the werewolf tormenting Locks Harbor. Conflicted, Henry wrestled with his loyalty and the reality of his brother's monstrous transformations. On one hand, he saw the townsfolk living in dread; on the other, he saw Elias, his playful little brother, who was now a tortured soul, battling an internal beast. Henry was a simple fisherman caught in a stormy sea of fear and duty. After nights of soul-searching, he made his choice. He would protect Elias, hiding his terrifying secret while searching for a remedy to the curse that had befallen his brother. Silently, Henry took over Elias's chores, offering weak excuses for his brother's reclusion. However, the villagers were growing wary. Whispers of the cursed moon, Elias's strange absence during each full moon, and the dread of the next murder painted a target on the innocent man's back. Henry felt the pressure mounting as the next full moon loomed. He decided to confine Elias in the abandoned sea caverns at the edge of the town, a secret place they frequented as children. The damp, moss-covered walls and the echoing cries of the ocean felt like a fitting prison for the unwilling monster Elias had become. Elias, unaware of his nocturnal transformations, found himself locked in the chilling darkness of the caverns. Confused and scared, he cried out to Henry, who stood outside, a silhouette against the radiant moon, his heart heavy with despair. As Elias's first pained howls echoed from the depths, Henry felt his resolve crumble. But he knew he had to stay strong, for Elias and for Locks Harbor. As the night wore on, the town remained quiet. The morning arrived with no new murder, and the townsfolk breathed a sigh of relief, oblivious to the sacrifice made by the two brothers. Henry, however, was exhausted and guilt-ridden, weighed down by the monstrous secret he was guarding. Each full moon, Henry repeated his grim ritual. And each month, he noticed his brother's humanity fading further. He felt desperate, watching Elias transform into a beast more and more quickly, his human self emerging less and less after each cycle. It was a macabre race against time. Yet, the people of Locks Harbor grew increasingly suspicious of the brothers. Elias's continuous absence was conspicuous, and Henry's strange behavior had not gone unnoticed. Fearful whispers grew into open accusations, and the town was ready to take matters into their own hands. One moonlit night, an angry mob, armed with torches and pitchforks, descended upon the brothers' cottage. In the caverns, Elias's transformation was already underway. Hearing the mob, Henry had a grim realization. He could no longer protect his brother. In a final act of desperation, he revealed the horrifying truth to the mob. Initially shocked, they then understood. The bond of blood had kept their town safe, but fear is a potent motivator. The mob decided to kill the beast and end their torment once and for all. They rushed to the caverns, leaving Henry behind, helpless. As they entered the caverns, the monstrous roar echoed through the chilling tunnel. The mob froze, fear replacing their initial bravado. They soon found themselves face to face with Elias, the beast. He was larger than they had imagined, a terrifying force of nature under the pale, haunting light of the moon. Back at the cottage, Henry felt a surge of fear. He grabbed his old harpoon and raced towards the caverns. His heart pounded against his ribs as he saw the aftermath of the confrontation. His fellow villagers, those who were still alive, were fleeing in terror. In the caverns, his eyes met Elias's, no longer human but still familiar. Elias, recognizing his brother, hesitated for a moment, but the beast was in control. As Elias lunged, Henry, with a heavy heart, thrust the harpoon forward. It found its mark, silencing the beast's growl. Elias collapsed, his monstrous form fading under the glow of the moon, replaced by his human figure. As the life ebbed from his brother's body, Henry held him close, whispering stories of their childhood spent under the same moon that now bore silent witness to their tragedy. His younger brother, the unwilling monster, died in his arms, setting him free from the curse that had cast its shadow on Locks Harbor. In the aftermath, Henry stood alone, the protector of the town, the killer of the beast, and the loving brother who had failed to save Elias. He looked up at the moon, the very moon under which their lives had played out. It was still there, unchanging, just as it would be tomorrow night, and the night after that, while his life had irrevocably changed beneath it. Pernicious thoughts. Albert Kincaid, a veteran artist renowned for his strikingly emotional sculptures, lived in solitary serenity in his rural studio. The heart of his artistry was a profound imagination, capable of dark, twisted thoughts that, much like an uncanny catharsis, spilled onto his creations. Despite his brilliance, Albert held a chilling secret. He was cursed with an extraordinary, terrifying power. Albert discovered an ancient relic during an archaeological expedition, a black, obsidian-like stone, engraved with symbols that seemed to shift and change. As an artist, Albert was drawn to the enigmatic artifact, ignorant of the malicious magic it held. The first incident was with a spider. Albert was sketching, and a rogue thought of an oversized, horrific arachnid entered his mind. In an instant, the monstrous spider emerged from the drawing, sending Albert reeling back in terror. He quickly squashed the abomination and realized the relic's horrifying power. His thoughts, no matter how monstrous, were given a terrifyingly real existence. Albert, alarmed, tried to suppress his mind's ghoulish images. But the more he resisted, the more terrifying his thoughts became. Shadowy figures started to appear around his house, the whispers of his fears given form. As Albert's secret torment continued, Rebecca Hardy, an ambitious journalist from the city, grew intrigued by the reclusive artist. She suspected something amiss, her journalistic instinct pushing her to uncover the truth. Rebecca sought the scoop that could launch her career, Albert's secret. In Albert's world, chaos was unleashed. He had tried to envision his fears as manageable, harmless figures, but his terror only amplified them. The creatures of his thoughts began haunting his waking hours, hiding in his home's dark corners, whispering his deepest fears and regrets. Albert knew he was losing control. His art studio, once a sanctuary, was now a manifestation of his own personal hell. Worse still, Rebecca's persistent snooping was closing in on his dark secret. Desperate, Albert decided to confront the relic, the root of his suffering. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long, ominous shadows around his studio, Albert mustered the courage to face his fear. He held the relic and closed his eyes, forcing his mind to conceive his worst thought, a gruesome, monstrous figure embodying all his fears and regrets. Rebecca, having infiltrated his studio, watched as the room grew dark. An intense dread filled the air. The eerie quiet was suddenly broken by a guttural growl. From the shadows, an enormous figure emerged, a grotesque mixture of every terror Albert had ever imagined. It had gnarled limbs, a monstrous face, and its eyes were the color of despair. Albert, frozen in terror, was finally facing his worst creation. His heart pounded as he realized that he had to control his thoughts, not out of fear but acceptance. Rebecca, hidden, watched in sheer terror and amazement as Albert stood his ground against the monster. The old artist closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. He faced his creation, acknowledging it as a part of him. He didn't resist it or fear it but accepted it. The beast roared, but Albert remained calm. As he opened his eyes, Albert saw the monster starting to shrink. The colors of despair were replaced with softer hues. The gnarled limbs retracted, the monstrous face softened. Albert's fears, given form, was reducing to a manageable, harmless figure. Rebecca watched in awe as the creature morphed into a small, dark bird, fluttering before settling on Albert's outstretched arm. The room lightened as the oppressive dread lifted. Albert had tamed his nightmare. He turned to Rebecca, surprising her. His eyes held a warning, a plea. Rebecca, shaken, agreed to keep his secret, having seen the terrifying toll it took on Albert. The thought sculptor, she mused later, writing her story, but it was about the artist, not the curse. She portrayed Albert as a man facing his fears, a story of inner battles that felt more real than any secret. As for Albert, he learned to live with his cursed relic. His art flourished, emotions poured into his creations, but they stayed as lifeless stone. And the little dark bird, a daily reminder of his triumph over his fears, became his most cherished companion. The Dollmaker's Revenge. Once upon a chilling autumn night in the quaint town of Wickersby, a tormented dollmaker, Victor Halstead, toiled tirelessly over two peculiar dolls. One was a male doll, his charming face tarnished with burn marks. The other, a female, was delicately beautiful, her dress weathered and worn. The dolls were not mere objects, they were the embodiment of Victor's unrequited love and unrestrained anger, created in response to his beloved, Constance, who abandoned him for a wealthier suitor. Upon finishing the dolls, Victor whispered a bitter curse, a spell to transfer his emotions onto anyone who encountered these silent watchers in the woods. He then left them in the thick forest surrounding Wickersby, hoping for revenge. The dolls remained undiscovered for a while, silently awaiting their victims. Until one day, a young couple, Adrian and Clara, stumbled upon them while on a picnic. Attracted by their vintage charm, Clara insisted on taking them home. Little did they know of the curse that now lurked within their walls. That night, as the moon shone, its light revealing the sinister grins on the doll faces, the transformation began. Adrian began to feel an inexplicable anger, a seething rage that was foreign to his nature. He started having terrifying nightmares filled with fire and violence, his sleep-deprived eyes reflecting the burns that marked the male doll's face. Clara, on the other hand, felt an emptiness gnawing at her. She began to lose interest in the things she loved, the light in her eyes fading as the days passed, mirroring the worn-out clothes of the female doll. Their once peaceful home was now a breeding ground for unspoken animosity and crushing despair. One evening, as Adrian's rage was at its peak, Clara found a diary while cleaning the attic. It was Victor's diary, left behind after he died of a broken heart, detailing the heartbreaking tale of his lost love and vengeance. Realizing the power the dolls wielded, Clara knew she had to break the curse to save their love. In desperation, Clara took the dolls back to the woods, their original resting place. The aura was tense, the forest alive with anticipation. In the heart of the woodland, Clara attempted to recreate the life the dolls were denied. She took the male doll's charred hand and gently placed it in the female doll's worn-out hand. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind whipped around them, and the forest fell eerily silent. Then, the dolls began to move, their lifeless eyes sparkling with an otherworldly glow. The male doll, once marred by marks of fury, caressed the female doll's cheek, his touch tender and loving. Clara watched in disbelief as the dolls enacted a love story that was once denied to them. They danced under the moonlight, their silent giggles echoing through the quiet woods. They seemed to live out a lifetime in a matter of minutes, playing out Victor's lost hopes and dreams, their movements gradually growing slower until they stopped, their eyes once again lifeless. As the doll's spectacle ended, Clara felt a weight lifted off her. The hollow emptiness was replaced with her earlier vivacity, her eyes sparkling with life. At home, Adrian, too, found his anger dissipating, replaced with his usual calm demeanor. The curse was lifted, the dolls remained in the woods, their purpose fulfilled. They were no longer agents of revenge but silent witnesses to a love story that finally found its closure. Word soon spread around Wickersby about the cursed dolls and the young couple who managed to break their spell. The woods were no longer just a patch of green but a place where a broken man's love story lived on. And the dolls? They remained, a male doll with burn marks and a female one with worn clothes, silent and still, forever locked in their eternal embrace.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.